Why South Sudan? An Every Village podcast where we answer questions about the world's youngest nation. The question of the day is, will every village ever branch out to teach trade work? Hey everyone, this is Tiana Johnston, the host of this podcast called Why South Sudan? So today's question is a good one. And so I thought, let's have Andrew Brown on the episode purely because he is on the board of a really awesome ministry called Lifehouse. So Andrew, welcome.
Hey Tiana, that's purely why. Also,
Partially.
I work for Every Village, but
That is true.
yes, but I am on the board of Lifehouse, and I'm actually wearing a Lifehouse sweater right now.
Yeah, there you go.
So it was perfect
Way to
timing.
be, I know, way to be very contextualized.
Thank you for the cold air conditioning in our office.
I know. I have a sweater.
In the middle of the summer that causes us to wear sweaters. Lifehouse Uganda, if I can take just a couple minutes to talk about that. And then I'll answer the question for Every Village. But Lifehouse Uganda, very much, this is what we are all about, is vocational training, trade work in Uganda. Uganda being a much more developed nation, Kampala specifically being a massive city, urbanized environment. The needs are incredibly large there. There's large slums, areas of the city that, people are stuck in desperate cycles of poverty, violence, and just darkness for sure. And really, there's no way out if they don't have employable work and capabilities. And so, looking for those opportunities. Well, we recently, I think last time, Tiana, we talked about the importance of college education in South Sudan. And that can be a great thing in places like Uganda, but at the end of the day, so many people, college is out of reach, but they need to be able to provide for their families now. And so those trade jobs are critical, and that runs so much of a society. And so Lifehouse Uganda does provide vocational training and discipleship and psychosocial services, focusing on counseling, holistic care for these individuals that are coming out of really, really tough stories. And it's an amazing ministry run by a team of Ugandans. They're working in a couple different sites in Kampala, and I just love, my favorite thing whenever I visit that ministry on my way into South Sudan is just hearing the testimonies of the students, truly who have come from desperate places, but you see hope and life and joy in them. And so much gratitude. They see Lifehouse as an answer to their prayers from God, because it is giving them a Christian community, a place of healing, a hope, and then they are truly learning life skills. Whether it is something like baking or cosmetology or welding or tailoring or computer classes. There's all kinds of courses that we teach at Lifehouse. All of those are critical in an urbanized environment. And they, upon graduation, so many of the students are able to get work, at hotels doing housekeeping or doing catering for weddings, or, again, opening up their own salon, and all kinds of things. And it's just an absolute joy and privilege to be on that board and represent them. And but South Sudan itself, transferring more to Every Village's work, is a lot different environment, and so it looks very, very different. So I'll just start out there with an intro. So yeah, no,
I thought that was so good, and I wanted you to share about that ministry, one, because we love to support and partner with other ministries as much as we can. So definitely really want to give a shout out to them. So feel free to check them out.
Lifehouseuganda.org.
Hey, there we go. I will also leave it in the notes. So good. So then, okay, let's shift to South Sudan, knowing that there's not a lot of opportunities for the South Sudanese, outside of a government job or NGO. But yeah, where could, or is it something that Every Village is even considered at one time or another?
Yeah, I think it's a many-layered answer. I would say there's some direct yeses that we actually have already done and been involved in. So as an example, running radio stations, as you can imagine, that requires electricity. And there is no city electricity in South Sudan to pull from. So we have to generate our own electricity. And so we've got generators, of course, for backup, but typically we're running our stations on solar power because it's the most stable and clean form of energy to produce there. And but that requires a lot of maintenance and a lot of technical work, wiring those the panels to the batteries and to the inverters and to the systems, and protecting it from lightning strikes and all of those things. And then from the solar panels, we're not just powering the station, but the whole compound, running lights and powering for our computers and all the work, the internet boxes, and so we have been able to outsource that to a South Sudanese company that installs the work for us, which is amazing. And I think I've mentioned them before because I love seeing South Sudan success businesses out there. That's what we need. So that's amazing. That was not an option many years ago, but recently they've come in. But we also wanted to have technical expertise on staff. And so we sent one of our South Sudanese staff members who was on radio in Mavolo to Kampala, Uganda for a short course in electrical work. And so he got an electrical diploma education. And now he's our electrician, and he's so resourceful. His name's Ruben, and now he travels to all of our locations whenever we're building out new compounds or buildings. He goes and does all the wiring, and he does a great job. I mean, in a way that you don't typically see there. I know it sounds like a big deal, but as an example, obviously here in the U.S., so many of our locations we're building our houses with plywood and it's easy to run electrical inside the walls. In South Sudan and Africa in general, you're talking about cinder blocks. So most of the electrical wiring is outside of the walls, and it's not a problem, but it's not quite as attractive. But he's even burying the electrical lines in the walls and doing a great job with the plaster work and in the ceiling tiles and running lights. It's really awesome. Just ceiling fans. I mean, this might not sound like a big deal to you as a listener, but I promise in South Sudan, it's a huge deal. And our compounds are becoming more comfortable and, they're more professional, what you would expect. It's awesome. And Ruben does all that work. But as an example of his resourcefulness, I got a video from him earlier this year. He was in Nostr, very remote place where we were trying to get work up and going, and there's nothing there. And he was trying to cut some timbers that he brought in. He was helping build out a local studio building and building a stand. And so he had the timber, and but he didn't have a table saw. He didn't have so what's he going to do? Well, he had a drill, and he had a grinder attachment for the drill. But if you've ever tried cutting, a 2x4 with that, that's pretty brutal. Well, then he had a ladder, and what I love, he had basically taped up the drill to hang horizontally on one of the ladder rungs, and then laid the ladder horizontally on some stands, and basically made his own table saw functionally. And he's running the 2x4 through this drill with a grinder attachment on it. And he did an amazing job. It was awesome. He's just resourceful. And so all that to say, I like telling that story as an example of the type of impact that like practical trade work type skills can have. And so that's the quick answer is yes. Ruben is an example where we have done that. Now, as a ministry, we're not looking to get into ongoing trade work or vocational training classes in South Sudan for a variety of reasons. Well, first, again, there still aren't a lot of opportunities for employment out there because we're not talking about urbanized environments. We're talking about very remote, rural bush land. Everybody just still lives in their own mud huts without electricity, like they always have. It's
not like we can get a plumbers or electricians out.
Yeah, for what? There's no plumbing. And so there's just not a demand yet, of course, where we work. So that's a big factor. But another factor is, of course, is we just don't want to become distracted in our mission. Mission drift is a thing. But we know what God's called us to. And for us, we want to focus on a few things and do them really, really well. And God's called us to water and radio and discipleship. And really it's the spread of the gospel and community development and seeing South Sudan become a nation for Christ. And so could we take on little different aspects of, again, short courses or opportunities to invest in one person or another? Certainly, there will be times and places. But as a ministry, we're not looking to take that on as a predefined program and core focus. But then, in addition to just what every village does, you and I go to South Sudan all the time, and we have friends there. whether they're staff members or other community members that want to go out and do something. And, we're often approached for personal support. And so, one of our staff members who, I just love telling his story, James Kahn in a wheel, he had a debilitating disease as a young child and isn't able to use his legs. So he's disabled and is able to get around, used to be in a wheelchair. Well, even before that would crawl around, and started out as one of our guards and basically just caretakers. He would start the generator for our radio station years ago and such. And he's grown into the ministry and has been on radio as a radio host for years now. And then we were able to support him getting a three-wheel motorcycle. So he got married and now he has two lovely children. All that to say, one of the things I love on the side, so outside of being a radio host where he's impacting so many people with his voice, James and his wife have started a ministry to other disabled people in his area on the weekends and has them come to his compound, and they do devotions, they serve them tea, but he's also teaching them practical trade skills, how to repair motorcycles and bicycles. That's something they can do with their hands, and they can learn. And so he has the vision to purchase a generator and other equipment, a welding machine to then go even further down the road. And so, I've been able with my wife to support him personally and some others. And I just love seeing that and seeing the pictures of the disabled community that come. I mean, Tiana, when you're disabled in the United States, typically it's caught early enough, you're able to get proper equipment, whether it's a wheelchair or other things. But in South Sudan, these people most of them, they're disabled and severely disabled. They're crawling on the ground on their knees, or they, it's so humbling to see those pictures. You read in Matthew chapter 5 about the least of these. They are the least of these, and yet James has a powerful testimony, because here he is himself, but he has said to us he's not disabled. He's disabled in his body, but not in his spirit. And so that's just another story of what trade work can look like in South Sudan. Basic, maintenance of bicycles, it could be something and so forth. But again, as a whole, as a ministry, that's not going to become a core focus. So.
No, I think that's really good. I mean, even I remember living there and teaching our staff like Christina and Teresa, the cooks in Tanj specifically, how to make bread, like this really, really good, fluffy, delicious bread, but then also teaching them how to make, a budo cake. So it's pumpkin bread is really what it was. But oh my gosh, everybody loved it so much. Because the thing is like, one is to use what they have, but then in also what other people aren't doing. Because I think the beauty of I would say Every Village and what we do, we want to try to broaden their perspective. We want to take them out so that they can see that there's more out there. Because otherwise, when you live in a village, all you see is tea shops. So you're like, oh, I want a tea shop. And we've been approached several times by some of our friends saying, hey, I want to, start a tea shop. Can you sponsor me and all of this? And we would ask, well, what is going to make yours different? And they just can't think of anything, and that's where it's like, you have to offer something that's going to be different than everyone else's. And so it's just so I love that story about James Caan, because it's like, he thought of this, like he's the one, and one, because of his own story, but also two, for him to want to see change within his culture is just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, they haven't had exposure to a lot of different styles of living. And so every South Sudanese lives the same, and they've lived the same for centuries. So why do anything new when you've always done it that way? It's such a traditional society. And I can't overemphasize that, because it's unique. There's not many places that are as traditional as South Sudan. Very, very homogenous in terms of the way they go about things and the way they do things and the way they think about things. So you're exactly right. It's like tea is all they know. So they do tea rather than thinking about different ways. And it's not like Teresa and Christina, they're amazing cooks. It's not like they don't know how to cook bread. They know how to cook bread, but they do it in the typical local way that everybody does, until they're shown another way. And now they make all kinds of amazing things, and they branch out, and it's awesome, And Teresa, because she did grow up in Sudan, in Khartoum, she makes basically a peanut brittle that's so delicious, right?
So good.
And some other things like that because of the exposure that she's had. And she started a little, at times she's had a little bit of a catering or restaurant business, you might say, I don't know. But those are neat opportunities, little local opportunities. But, it takes kind of an innovative spirit, but the vision to do it. And then it does take some financial capital as well. And that can be a real factor that prevents people from being able to start out. And so, but I do think it's just a neat aspect of nation building is, the other thing I would say, the last thing I would say on this is just that while we as a ministry want to remain mission true, water, radio, discipleship, the reality about radio is radio as a ministry, being community radio station, is that's what we do. But on radio, you have all kinds of programs that are community based. So you have a sports program, and you've got, of course, the Bible teaching and the preaching, but you have community development programs. You have a local business leader come in and talk, or, an entrepreneur or another organization, a health group, or government officials have a panel discussion, it's touching every aspect of life. And so, there is no doubt that our staff have the ability to even get into, somewhat vocational education in the terms of, providing people exposure through the interviews that they do, or highlighting different work that's possible. Sharing of testimonies, that's what builds people's visions for what's possible. And so I have no doubt that our local community radio stations are involved in these very things at a community level, but it's still different from what our core focus is, if that makes sense. And that's why I love radio, though, because it is having such a holistic impact in this nation, and it goes far beyond. It's not just about, pumping out, one set of content. It is dynamic, and that's the beauty. It's not just MP3 files. It is radio. It's dynamic, and it changes with the society and grows with them and helps them grow with it, and it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so good. Well, this was a good one. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Yeah, and I think it feels like a unique topic for us. I don't know whether we branched here, so
I know.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, we invite everyone back to the next episode as we answer the question, does foreign aid create dependency and hurt the country it's sent to? Take care.